After 3 years of being her possession, taken by force, my patron suddenly went bankrupt. Alara left me a sum of money and calmly prepared to kill herself. Before she went, she begged me not to mock her and told me that I was finally free, but I just gave a slight shake of my head. Now it was my turn to do the taking. The news of Alara's bankruptcy spread like wildfire, and it had to be true because her frenemies were already starting to make moves on me. The quickest way to break a woman is to steal her man. I snarled at the woman on the phone who was making lewd comments. What's wrong with you? If you're that horny, use your own hand. Ignoring her humiliated rage on the other end, I hung up and blocked the number. A soft, tired-sounding laugh came from behind me. Alara came over from the foyer, wrapped her arms around me as we sat on the couch, and leaned heavily into my embrace. I've never seen you lose your temper before. I thought you were a puppy, but it turns out you have a wild side. Alara's lips curved into a smirk. A shame I found out too late. There won't be any more chances. A queen is a queen, I guess, able to smile even when she's broke and destitute. The air was thick with unspoken things, and then she suddenly asked, "Where's the card I gave you?" I transferred $2 million into it. "Hiroki, just as you always wanted. You're free." As Alara spoke, half of her face was lost in the shadows, her expression unreadable. I did always crave freedom, but I don't think I ever truly planned on leaving her. Being with her was great. Plenty of money, amazing in bed, gorgeous, just a little too controlling. I'm not a pushover, so I couldn't help but run my mouth and talk some smack now and then. I thought for a moment, feeling it was wrong to be snarky now, and just asked, "Are you really bankrupt?" She turned her head away and gave a soft, The sound had barely faded before she added, "Please don't mock me. And you can leave now." Her legs were rubbing together restlessly, a clear sign of the war raging within her. I asked again, "You gave me all your money, so what's your plan?" A long silence was my only answer. I tossed the dagger I'd found in the bathroom onto the table. "Planning on this?" Alara's voice dropped. "Don't talk about it." She pressed again. "You always wanted to be free, didn't you? You can go. I won't force you anymore. I don't have the power to." I remained as nonchalant as ever, not rushing to give her an answer. I can't even recall how pathetic I was when I first met Alara. Only that when I was so broke I was about to sell my body to pay off debts, she bought me with a black card and took me home. I'd heard of her before then, of course, and none of it was good. I tried to escape more than once, but I was always caught. She had a tracker implanted in my tooth, cameras installed in my room, and I could only use the phone and laptop she provided. She controlled every aspect of my life, right down to the flavor of my toothpaste. My resistance was like a kitten scratching to her, but every act of defiance earned a punishment. Sometimes I'd be tied to the piano, other times strapped to a pommel horse, always in poses and positions that pleased her. I was forbidden from contacting anyone she didn't approve of, man or woman. If she ever caught me, that person would vanish from my life completely. I was terrified of her for a long time, and our relationship had become something twisted and impure. My affection for her was always laced with fear, but human emotions are impossible to control, especially now that maybe I could finally be the one in charge. At that thought, I shook my head. Now it's my turn to do the taking. What are you going to do about it? Alara hesitated, seemingly unable to speak the words, "do the taking." I paused, thinking, damn, I was too impulsive. Whatever, I was all in now. Let's just say I'm paying for your services now. Thanks to you, I've saved a bit of money over the years, invested in some real estate. If I sell it all off, plus the luxury cars and watches you bought me, it should be enough to cover some of your debts. She seemed slightly moved, but then her brow furrowed again. For someone who was supposedly a captive, you have a very clear inventory of your assets. I saw her eyes narrow and her body tense, poised to run at any second. The mood chilled instantly with her words. I instinctively shifted back, and she immediately shot up, planting her hands on the sofa on either side of me, trapping me between her arms in that old commanding way. Always trying to run. Her focus sharpened, as if she was about to say more, but she changed her tone. "Well, now you get your wish, Hiroki. Just go before I change my mind." For the first time in 3 years, I rolled my eyes at her and pointed to the video doorbell's monitor. "Seriously? You think you have time for regrets? There's a mob of creditors right outside. The words had barely left my mouth when Alara glanced at the screen and suddenly shoved me against the door. I've never tried this while debt collectors are at the door, she murmured. Alara, I hissed. The commotion inside seemed to alert the people outside. Through the door, I was forced to watch the piercing stares of the men on the monitor. The woman responsible for all this pressed against me, her voice a low whisper only I could hear. You can scream a little louder in a bit. Let them hear you so they'll break in and kill me. As she spoke, Alara ignored my protests and pinned my hands behind my back. Damn it, I hated this position. I tried to struggle when she reached for a rope, but she just muttered to herself, completely unfazed. I owe so much money. They'll probably chop me up and sell me for parts. Hilarious. Who would even care? I don't know how much time passed before my wrists were finally free. I furiously threw the rope onto the mat, one hand on my hip, the other jabbing a finger toward her nose. Don't you forget who's doing the taking now. I'm your patron, and you will do as I say. So what are your demands? Alara asked, her composure already returned, a playful glint in her eye. Patron? First, I said after a moment's thought. No killing yourself and cut the act. I tossed a new credit card on the table, putting on an air of superiority. This is in my name. It has all my savings from the past few years, probably around 40 or 50 million. As she stared in astonishment, I produced several property deeds and a pile of watch boxes complete with their certificates of authenticity. Liquidate these. That should be another 9 figures, at least. I put my hands on my hips, savoring the right to posture that I'd just stolen from her. Use it all to pay your debts. At least it'll buy you the right to live. All right, Alara said, her eyes scanning the items. What do you want from me? I didn't like her tone. It made my grand dramatic rescue feel like just another way to manipulate her, but it didn't matter because throwing money at someone felt absolutely incredible. I'm going to have this tracker removed from my tooth, I said, watching her expression carefully. And then I'm going to have it put in you. Alara lifted her gaze to meet mine, and that simple movement made a cold sweat break out on my back. Some hidden part of me, conditioned by years of random punishments, had learned to sense danger before my mind did. I recalled everything she'd done to me. And from now on, your every move is under my control. You'll report to me before you go anywhere, and you are not to be seen with any men. Oh, I added meticulously, and I don't like mint toothpaste. Get lemon from now on. Alara's eyes never left me. After a long moment, she spoke slowly. You're surprisingly good at this game of taking. So, she asked, her tone unreadable, are you going to punish me as harshly as I punished you? In your dreams. In the days that followed, I acted on every twisted little fantasy I had, inflicting on Alara all the torments she had once inflicted on me. That tracking device was now firmly embedded in the third molar from the back of Alara's upper jaw. Every evening, I made her wear nothing but an apron and perform the act of cooking for me. Yes, perform, because she couldn't actually cook, but I liked watching a woman in the kitchen. Everyone has their kinks. She used to make me wear fetish outfits and pretend to give lectures for her. From the day she agreed to my taking, she lost all control over her electronic devices. Her phone, her tablet, her laptop, they were all logged into my accounts, allowing me to monitor her every move. As for her physical freedom, I didn't even need to enforce it. With the entire world's creditors looking for her, she couldn't go out anyway. Late one night, Alara, who'd been under house arrest for days, was squatting on a chair to eat her dinner. I watched her from the sofa, enjoying the view. I like that chair you're on, I said, a sudden idea striking me. Alara instinctively ran a hand over the chair's surface, testing its hardness and angles. I don't think so. It's too hard. It would hurt you. Why would I be in pain? I raised an eyebrow. When you'll be under me. Alara set down her bowl slowly, swallowed her last bite of food, and said, All right. I'd love to see you on top, working hard and dancing for me. What kind of twisted thing was that to say? I was the one in charge. On another late night, Alara was busy with something at her desk. I leaned against the door frame, watching. After some time, she took a call. Do it now. I quickly slid under the desk. Thanks to Alara's particular tastes, I knew the 2 front casters on this office chair could be locked. While Alara was arguing with the person on the phone, I stealthily locked the wheels, and by the time she tried to move, she was trapped. The person on the phone was relentless, their voice growing louder and more aggressive. Meanwhile, Alara was becoming increasingly distracted by my advances. I kissed my way up the path of her unbuttoned blouse, then tilted the chair all the way back. Alara fell silent, the only sound in the room the angry tirade of the creditor on the phone. I mouthed to her, "I thought you liked doing this while debt collectors are calling? Go on." Alara's face flushed with a mixture of anger and arousal, and she bit her lip to stay quiet. I didn't stop, and the sleek, serious-looking black office chair began to rock with the sound of intermittent curses from the phone as our soundtrack. Just as we reached the peak, I abruptly stopped and held the still active phone up for her. "Sorry," I said to the person on the other end. "Did I interrupt something?" Alara's eyes were glazed over, filled with a mixture of frustration and disbelief as she watched me walk out of the room. Damn, that felt good. I was very pleased with this new, freewheeling lifestyle, but it wasn't long before the creditors were back at our door. All that money wasn't enough to fill the hole. Alara fidgeted with the edge of her apron. It snowballed. It just kept getting bigger. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? You looked so happy," Alara said. "I wanted to let you have a few more good days." The creditors camped outside our door for 3 solid days. After we'd eaten every last bit of food in the house, Alara finally snapped. "Mr. Patron, has there ever been a more pathetic-kept woman in all of history?" "Thanks. And I've never been such a pathetic patron," I retorted. I patted her head like she was a puppy, and ignoring the thunderous look on her face, I called 911. After giving the address, I told the operator, feeling a bit embarrassed, "Hello, officer? There's a group of people here gambling illegally and engaging in public indecency. Could you send a car?" Less than 20 minutes later, the sound of sirens sent the crowd of creditors scattering. "Humph," Alara scoffed, hands on her hips, her expression a mix of disdain and grudging admiration. I shot back, not to be outdone. "At least now we can go get some food." I told the police the truth, and Alara and I ended up getting a 3-day stay in a county jail for our troubles. After we got out, the first thing I did was take Alara to my old apartment, a small place that was still decorated just as I'd left it, cozy and sweet. As I was fondly reminiscing, Alara broke her silence for the day. "Shut up. Is it your turn to talk?" I gave her a light slap. "I gave you all my properties and all my money to pay off your debts. This place was my grandmother's. You should be grateful we have a roof over our heads at all." Alara was silent for a moment. "I remember your grandmother was very ill. Pancreatic cancer," I said, starting to tidy up. "If you hadn't given me the money, her last days would have been filled with pain. I didn't do anything to help you." I looked at her seriously. Patients with pancreatic cancer suffer immensely at the end. Back then, I had no money for her treatment. I couldn't even afford the painkillers, couldn't even give her a decent meal. "Hiroki," Alara began, trying to change the subject. "Money solves a lot of problems, like letting my grandmother die with some dignity." "Is that why you're taking me in now?" she asked, staring at me. "Because my money helped your grandmother?" I stared back at her. This wasn't the right moment. Not when we were this pathetic, to say, "I'm taking you in because I kind of like you, and I can't stand the thought of you being torn apart by creditors, and I don't want to see the high and mighty Alara fall so hard. Since you're bankrupt anyway, you might as well just stay with me from now on." I hesitated, then put on my best patron air. "You could say that. Besides, I want a taste of what it's like to torment you, and this is the perfect opportunity, isn't it?" She fell silent again. "Bankruptcy makes you pessimistic, and pessimism makes you quiet. I get it." I turned and started ordering takeout on my phone. The moment I confirmed the order, I looked up to see her face rushing toward mine, her lips crashing down on me. Her soft chest pressed me into the sofa cushions. My hands were pinned above my head, and my legs were quickly restrained. "MMPH," I protested, my anger rising. She paused for a second, then her hands moved with lightning speed, clothes flying everywhere before she flipped us over. "Fine, you can be on top, Mr. Patron," she said later. Alara tried to justify herself. "You said you wanted to torment me, didn't you? So I let you." My face was burning. "Shut up. What the hell are you talking about?" Alara's eyes were apologetic. "You're just so different now. I can't seem to control myself around you. I'm sorry. If only I still had my money." She started to say more, but I grabbed the nearest pillow and threw it at her, which finally shut her up. After we ate, I started to clean up the apartment. It was a small, one-bedroom place with only one bed. "I can sleep on the couch," Alara offered quickly. I'm the patron here. I make the rules, I said, pointing to the bed. You take the bed. I'll take the couch. Late that night, after hearing the thud of someone falling off the couch for the 10th time, I realized the former queen wasn't cut out for sofa sleeping. At my instruction, Alara quickly scrambled into the bed. She snuggled close, her voice a small whisper. Hiroki, being like this, it feels like we're a married couple. My heart skipped a beat, but I scoffed. Dream on. We're not even a couple. I'm your patron and your creditor. Then I rolled over, biting the blanket to muffle my silent sobs. I finally got to be the patron, but now all the money was gone. Now I was bankrupt too. Even though we were flat broke, I still didn't trust Alara to be out on her own, so I had her stay home and research ways to make money while I secretly went out to find a job. A patron has to maintain some dignity, after all. Realizing I'd become a kept man right out of college and had zero work experience, I opened up Reddit and searched, what jobs are good for college grads with no experience? The answers were, if you're fit, do the gig economy triathlon of DoorDash, Uber, and Amazon delivery. If you're older, the 3 S's of security, sanitation, or senior care. If you have no skills, the unholy trinity of factory work, customer service, or sales. And if you wanted a real, life-changing gamble, there were always high-risk ventures abroad. I silently closed my phone. Had the job market really gotten this bad? I opened a job app and after some searching, found what looked like a decent office job. 9 to 5, 20,000 a month. I clicked on it. The location? Vietnam. Right. I might be inexperienced, but I wasn't an idiot. After half a day of searching, I found a job as a housekeeper. The couple who employed me would leave for work and I'd go in, clean the house, do the laundry, and that was it. For that little work, they were paying $30,000 a month. They had to be loaded. The agent from the service confirmed the details with me. They're in a hurry. It would be best if you could start this afternoon. She said it like it was the most normal thing in the world. You know how it is with these workaholics. The house falls apart if no one's there to look after it for a day. I looked at her blankly. I really didn't know. Alara had been a workaholic, but her life had never been chaotic. Did you get that? The agent pressed. You should get ready to start this afternoon. I nodded quickly. I understand. The job was far from my apartment, so I grabbed a quick bite to eat on the way. While I was eating, Alara called. Where are you? Out, I said, my mouth full of hamburger. Do you have enough money? She asked. I almost choked on my burger. The irony made me laugh, so hard my cheeks ached. I fought the urge to mess with her and just made up an excuse. A friend of mine is going through a bad breakup. I'm just hanging out with him for the day. We'll probably play some cards, maybe shoot some hoops. She listened silently on the other end. When I was done, she finally asked, so you're not having dinner with me? I'll be back tonight. I can bring you whatever you want for dinner. She didn't reply, so I kept talking, mostly to myself. I'm a pretty good patron, aren't I? I even report my whereabouts to my kept woman, unlike some people I know who never bothered to do the same for me. This time, Alara's reply was swift, right. Thinking back, as domineering and absolute as Alara was, she had never just vanished without a word. Well, I'm not vanishing, am I? I said, I'm just out for a bit. A patron has to have a little freedom, right? It feels like we're a married couple. Her words from the other night flashed in my mind, and before I knew it, I was saying, we're not actually married, you know. Your control issues are showing. The bright sun outside was making my head swim, and all I could think about was finishing my burger and looking up tips for my new housekeeping job. I was so preoccupied that I didn't notice how unerringly quiet the other end of the line had become. I waited for her to reply while I finished my burger, and it was only after I'd swallowed the last bite that I realized she had already hung up. I didn't think much of it. Right now, making money and doing a good job for my employer were the most important things. I needed money to take care of her. The thought that for the time being Alara was completely dependent on me put me in an excellent mood. I arrived at the apartment 20 minutes early. For $30,000 a month, I expected a disaster zone or a long list of demands, but it was just a normal apartment, and it wasn't even dirty. The laundry hamper only had a few women's dresses that looked like they might not have even been worn, and the fridge just had a few bottles of water. I did a quick tour and found a note on the dining table. All requirements were given to the agency. Just complete the tasks. That's it. I checked every room. All the trash cans combined wouldn't even fill a single bag. $1,000 a day for this. I felt guilty, so I filled a bucket and wiped down every smooth surface in the apartment twice. I took the few clothes out of the closet, aired them out, and ironed them. I polished every dish and glass in the kitchen and the living room bar. Only after making sure the entire apartment was spotless did I leave with a tiny, palm-sized bag of trash. After locking the door, I thought for a second, then took a picture of it and sent it to my employer via iMessage. All done and locked up. She replied almost instantly. Great. Thank you for your hard work. There's $200 under the doormat. Buy yourself a drink. I was shocked and quickly typed back, oh no, you don't have to do that. You're already paying me so generously. I couldn't possibly take more. I get home very late. If you don't take it, the building's cleaning crew probably will. The money won't be coming back to me either way. I hesitated. All right then. Thank you very much. So rich. She tips $200 for a bottle of water. Grinning, I immediately bought dinner and headed home. When I got home, I didn't see Yandere right away. The apartment was so small that a single glance was enough to find her sitting on the tiny balcony, staring out at the city. I set down the takeout and gently called her in for dinner. She was cooperative, getting up from the small balcony couch immediately. Her long legs were enough to make anyone jealous. She crossed to the table in 2 strides, set out her food, and began to eat in silence. I sighed internally. She would never have eaten cheap takeout like this before. The whole evening was unerringly normal. She finished her food, washed her dish, and then got on her laptop to work. I, on the other hand, was exhausted from my day's work, so I just took a shower and went to bed. In that state between sleep and waking, I thought I heard a voice. You want to run, don't you? But you can't bring yourself to do it. The words faded away like a dream. The next few days passed in much the same way. I spent my days cleaning diligently and my nights falling into an exhausted sleep. Yandere, unable to leave the house, was constantly on her laptop, working furiously. Every day, I loved my new job. I never saw my employer. All communication was through notes or iMessage. The quality of my work was entirely up to my own standards. After a month, the $30,000 was deposited right on time. I was so excited I could have jumped for joy. By the second month, I was more motivated than ever. Yandere seemed to be making some progress too. A perpetual frown on her face had eased slightly in the last couple of days, though she was still very quiet. The apartment was unusually clean today. Even the dress that was usually in the hamper was already washed, dried, and hanging up. I walked through the apartment. The trash was empty, the floors spotless. I felt like I was the only dirty thing in the entire place. Just as I was wondering what was going on, a woman in loungewear emerged from the bedroom. I jumped and she spoke first. I'm your employer, Naomi. I immediately plastered on a smile. Oh, hello, Miss Naomi. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you'd be home today. Naomi gave me a warm smile. So, how do you like working here? Is it tiring? Tiring. With a workload this light, who was I to complain about being tired? Her asking made me feel a little ashamed. The job is great. I should be thanking you. Naomi walked over to the kitchen island and poured me a glass of water. Take a break. You don't need to clean today. Maybe because we were in her home, she seemed very forward and familiar. I took the glass awkwardly. Well, if there's no cleaning to do, I'll get out of your hair and let you rest. I finished the water and got ready to leave. Hiroki, the woman said suddenly, her tone changing. She sounded like she knew me well. You don't remember me? We were in college together. I was stunned. In college, I was always either in class or at work. I never paid much attention to my classmates. The last few years with Yandere, I'd lost touch with everyone from my past. I never bothered to reconnect. I racked my brain, but I couldn't place her at all. Never mind, she said. You never paid much attention to anyone back then. It's been years, so it's normal you don't remember. So I asked the most important question. Did you know it was me before you hired me? Did you see my file at the agency, recognize me, and then decide to hire me? Is that why the pay is so much higher than the market rate? Was it a special favor? You're not going to heroically quit over this, are you? I wouldn't. Not when I needed the money this badly, but I felt indebted. It was obvious I was taking advantage of her generosity. As if sensing my hesitation, Naomi offered me an out. If you feel bad about it, you could do me a favor. What is it? I have a meeting here tomorrow afternoon. Someone wants to discuss some business with me. Could you stay and help out? You just need to clean up a little when we're done. I thought it was going to be some huge request. Of course, that's no problem at all. That's part of my job anyway. It's not a favor. Naomi took an elegant sip of her water. Well, thank you in advance. The next day, determined to earn that 30,000, I arrived early. Naomi was home, resting on the sofa with her eyes closed while I began cleaning nonstop. I could feel her eyes on me, watching me, sizing me up. It made me uncomfortable, but I had a job to do. A little while later, the doorbell rang. Naomi gestured for me to get the door. I nodded and hurried over. I hadn't intended to stare at my employer's guest, but the moment I opened the door, my world froze. My scalp tingled, and my eyes locked with the person standing there, unable to look away. Hiroki. Her saying my name was enough to make my knees weak. Alara, you're here, Naomi said from behind me. She stood right behind me, positioning herself so we were side by side, like a couple greeting a guest. Come in. We've been waiting for you. We? What did she mean, we? There was no we. I was just about to start explaining all my recent absences, all the lies I'd told about not being home, but as Naomi stepped aside, Alara brushed right past me and entered the apartment. She didn't say a single word to me, but the look in her eyes, shifting from shocked confusion to a cold, dawning comprehension, sent a chill down my spine. The sight of her indifferent back as she walked away filled me with a sudden panic. Naomi poured her a cup of the tea I had made, then turned to me and said in a tone that left no room for argument. Hiroki, the tea is getting cold. Go make some more. It was my job, wasn't it? So why couldn't I move? The look in Naomi's eyes was suddenly foreign to me. That smug, triumphant, waiting for the show to begin expression felt like the real her. This is my housekeeper, Naomi explained to Alara with faux kindness as Alara's eyes lingered on me. He just does a bit of cleaning. I asked him to stay today specifically to help out. Alara's brow furrowed at her words, and she shot another look at me. As she looked away, I saw a flash of the old Alara, the ruthless, decisive, cold-hearted woman I once knew. It finally clicked. They knew each other, and Naomi had clearly lost some battle against Alara in the past. Now their roles were reversed, and Alara was the one who needed something. Naomi had deliberately set this meeting here, had deliberately hired me, all to humiliate Alara. She had no intention of helping Alara, no intention of doing business. She just wanted to use me for revenge, to make the woman who once treated her like an insect feel the sting of seeing her own man reduced to a servant, all while she was completely in the dark, coming to beg for help. I glared at Naomi with pure disgust, and she just raised an eyebrow, unconcerned. So, Alara, what did you want to discuss? She asked, feigning ignorance. I didn't dare to speak, afraid I would ruin whatever Alara was planning. Nothing, Alara said, standing up calmly. She drained her cup, remarked the tea was good, and then smashed the cup on the floor. She lunged at Naomi, her fists flying, hitting her again and again. She beat Naomi senseless, and Naomi was completely powerless to stop her. Alara didn't stop until Naomi was a whimpering mess on the floor. Then she turned, took my hand, and led me out. We need to move fast, she said. After a stunt like that, Naomi probably has people waiting nearby to grab us. There's a price on my head, after all. She could still find the time to joke. I followed her closely as we switched subways multiple times before I finally felt safe. I couldn't get the look on Alara's face out of my head. What were you thinking? I had to ask. When you saw that it was me who opened the door? I knew it, she said simply. Knew what? She turned to look at me. I knew you'd run off with someone rich, and of course it had to be someone who hates me. I guess you really don't care about me at all. That's not true. The words flew out of my mouth before I could stop them. I couldn't believe she would think something so ridiculous. You're bankrupt, aren't you? I used all my savings to pay off your debts, so I found this high-paying job thinking I could help you out. I never expected that she... I understand, Alara said, a small smile playing on her lips. I get it now. She was deliberately using you to get to me. She tried to get a job at my company once and failed. Then she went to a competitor and tried to come after me and failed again. In fact, I only heard about both failures secondhand. She never even made a dent in my business. And now she's gone to all this trouble just to try and humiliate me, and failed again. I finished for her. No, Alara said, her voice suddenly low. This time she succeeded. The hand she had placed on mine twitched, but didn't tighten its grip. I never thought you'd actually use all your savings to cover my debts, she said. her thoughts seemingly elsewhere. As we got out of the taxi, she added out of nowhere, "I'll pay you back one day." After that day, the tension between Alara and me seemed to dissolve. She continued to play along with my game of taking, submitting to all my sudden whims. I stopped looking for other work and instead started going with her to meet with her old business contacts. She was still the same Alara, bold and meticulous, sharp and decisive. The path to rebuilding her empire was incredibly difficult, but she never once complained. Just when I thought things were finally starting to settle down for us, she was hospitalized. I was in the middle of making dinner when the call from the hospital came. "Is this Mr. Hiroki? You need to get to the hospital right away." A Miss Alara was broad and covered in blood. "She's going into shock." My vision went black. I immediately shut off the stove, killed the power, and ran out the door to the hospital. On the way, one of Alara's old, loyal assistants called and told me what happened. She'd been trying to secure an investment, and the investor had given her a cruel challenge. He'd thrown a card loaded with $2 million into a pit filled with shattered glass and told her if she jumped in and retrieved it, the investment was hers. I started to tremble. A pit full of broken glass. How many cuts would she have? How much pain must she have been in? She was risking her life. I was so distraught I could barely breathe, as if I were the one covered in wounds. The assistant's voice broke. Alara was just so desperate. The surgery lasted until midnight. The doctor's voice trembled as he spoke. "There was only one life-threatening injury, which we've closed up, but the sheer number of smaller lacerations is immense. She'd lost a lot of blood by the time she got here. She's going to need a lot of rest." I followed the gurney into her room and began a sleepless vigil. Alara woke up early. As soon as the anesthesia wore off, she looked around, and upon realizing she was in a hospital, she first seemed relieved, then grew tense again. "Hiroki, get my things. We're leaving." She rarely used that commanding tone with me anymore. I frowned. "You just got out of surgery." I hadn't even had a chance to be angry at her for gambling with her life, and now she was giving me a new reason to be furious. "We have to go back," she said, her tone firm. Then it softened. "Staying in the hospital is like putting up a sign with my location telling everyone where I am. People will come for me." I understood her reasoning, but how could she leave the hospital in her condition? I was so torn I wanted to cry. Her assistant came in, understood the situation at a glance, and immediately went to handle the discharge paperwork. Alara looked at me, her gaze and tone leaving no room for argument. "Go home and get the medical supplies ready. These wounds will need to be changed regularly. Right? Whatever we're missing, go buy it now." I couldn't refuse, so I went. I rushed through the bustling hospital, a map seeming to unfold in my mind, guiding me from the doctor's office to the pharmacy to the billing department. The moment I left the hospital, I hailed a cab and rushed home. I beat Alara home. She hadn't arrived yet. I followed her instructions, quickly sorting and preparing all the medications and supplies she would need, but I waited and waited. A 30-minute drive turned into 2 hours, and she still wasn't home. A panic like nothing I'd ever felt before consumed me. I started to pack a bag to go back to the hospital, but as I was about to leave, my eyes fell on the apron hanging in the kitchen. The tracker. The tracker was still in her tooth. I ran to the computer, opened the app, and checked her location. What I saw sent a chill through my entire body. Her location was in the ocean, and it was moving steadily toward international waters. Just then, her assistant called. "Hiroki, Alara's in danger. Her last message to me was to contact you. She said you would know how to find her. She's on the water heading south. They must be taking her out to international waters." I couldn't speak. "Mr. Hiroki, please, come downstairs now. I'm almost there." I followed him, and we quickly boarded a boat heading out to sea. The boat was fast. I spent the trip vomiting over the side while tracking her location on the laptop. As dusk fell, we finally spotted their boat, but just as we were closing in, they stopped. A moment later, an identical boat appeared behind us. "It was a trap," the assistant said, his face grim. A man on the other boat yelled across the water. "Did you really think you could come out to international waters and just go home safely?" My eyes were fixed on Alara, tied to the railing of their boat, her wounds still bleeding. I could see that the rope binding her was attached to a large block of concrete. If they pushed it overboard, she would never surface again. The thought made me vomit again, more violently this time. We were outnumbered. The assistant and I were quickly overpowered and dragged onto their boat. I was thrown down next to Alara like a dog. "I'm sorry. I got you into this," she said. I'd never been in a situation like this. I was filled with a primal fear of the ocean, being fed to the fish. Our captor laughed. Well, Alara. Not so high and mighty now, are you?" He put his foot on her shin. "See? Nothing good ever happens to the people who get close to you. Still thinking you can make a comeback?" The man couldn't stop talking, his resentment toward Alara pouring out of him. "Thinking of starting a new company? I'll make sure you die without ever knowing what hit you." He started walking toward me. "I'm going to let you watch the man who spent 3 years with you die for you, and then I'll send you down to join him." As he spoke, Alara suddenly squeezed my hand. She had secretly managed to untie her hands. Just as the man was about to shove me overboard, Alara sprang up, looping the freed rope around his neck. The assistant immediately shoved the concrete block tied to the other end. With a scream, the man who was about to kill me was yanked into the ocean. "Don't worry, he won't die," Alara said, trying to reassure me. "The knot wasn't a slip knot. It'll loosen in the water. He'll be back on the boat soon. We have to go now." The other 2 goons were stunned for a moment before they charged at us. Alara and her assistant each took one, and in a flurry of motion, both men were in the water. We scrambled onto our boat and sped away. Behind us, we could see 3 figures pulling themselves out of the water and back onto their boat. "They won't dare to follow us," the assistant said, panting. "I called the Coast Guard as soon as I was on my way." "Good," Alara said weakly, slumping against me. She closed her eyes and fell silent. Terrified, I checked to see if she was still breathing. Only when I felt the air from her nostrils did I let out a small sigh of relief. "You seem to care about me a lot," Alara said, her voice barely a whisper. My heart was still racing. "Of course I do, Alara. Do you have any idea how scared I was? I haven't even had time to be mad at you for risking your life for money, and then I almost lost you for good." "But you wanted to be free, didn't you?" she asked. "Does wanting freedom mean I don't want you? How can you be so stupid?" "Being like this," she said, "it feels like we're a married couple." After we got back, I managed to force Alara to rest for a few days, but then she was back to work, as relentless as ever. She got her investment. The man who'd been trying to destroy her was doing time, and her life seemed to be back on track. I told her she didn't need to rush, that she couldn't earn all the money in the world at once. She just said, "I have to. I'm tired of being the kept woman. I want to be the patron." And so her life once again skyrocketed. She took her newfound wealth and started showering me with gifts, properties, cars, everything. I laughed. "This feels a lot like a marriage proposal." "Then let it be a proposal," Alara said, wiring another huge sum into my account. "So, do you want to go back to being my kept man, or do you want to marry me?" I climbed on top of her. "I want to be the patron. I want to do the taking. I want to torment you mercilessly." "All right," she said, tossing all the credit cards from her wallet onto my chest. "A patron can't be broke. They're all yours." She lay back, pulling off my underwear and placing it over her eyes. "Come on then. Torment me mercilessly, Mr. Patron." I glanced at the newly unwrapped fetish costume lying nearby, and my mood brightened considerably. The unsuspecting woman beneath me urged, "Mr. Patron, aren't you ready yet? Please hurry. I have an appointment at the courthouse this afternoon." "Coming," I pounced. "I'm not letting you get away this time."